We go to the South Island now. Tragedy upon tragedy. Jonathan Wallis has this afternoon paid an emotional tribute to his brother Nick, describing his death and the death of his brother Matthew in July in a similar accident as a cruel reality. Pilot Nick Wallis was killed yesterday morning, along with dock workers Scott Theobald and Paul Honderlink, when the helicopter crashed just 1,500 metres from Wanaka Airport. And as Tess Brunton reports from Wanaka, investigators described the crash scene as a jigsaw puzzle, with wreckage littering the ground for a kilometre.
The family of helicopter pilot Nick Wallis says flying is in their blood and they'll continue to pilot helicopters despite losing two brothers in crashes in 3 months. Nick Wallis and dock workers Scott Theobald and Paul Honderlink were killed yesterday morning when the Hughes 500 chopper crashed yesterday morning in farmland north of Wanaka Airport shortly after takeoff. This afternoon, Toby and Jonathan Wallis fronted a press conference describing their brother as larger than life.
6'6", he was 120 kilograms, but he was effervescent. He was nothing was a problem, and he was passionate about what he did. He was one of 4 brothers from an aviation family, an aviation background. He genuinely loved what he did.
Jonathan Wallis said he and Toby had gone flying yesterday and both had spoken to Nick before they took off. He said losing Nick so soon after brother Matthew was a cruel reality.
It is not quite 3 months since Matthew's death in a helicopter accident not far from here. And that makes it, of course it makes it hard, it makes it doubly hard. You don't become immune to this, no one does, and so that's difficult. We're a very close family, as are Toby and I, and it makes it very hard. Yeah.
Dock Director General Lou Sanson paid a moving tribute to Biodiversity Ranger Scott Theobald and Dock Senior Ranger Paul Honderlink, who along with Nick Wallis were on their way to Haas to begin a tar cull.
Between the Wallises and Paul, we were able to do big catchments out here to stop the spread of animals south, to deal with goats, to deal with pigs, to deal with our biodiversity. And yesterday they were heading into the Landsborough, probably one of our most successful Area 1080 operations, where we've brought birds back, we've brought mohua back, we've brought kaka back, and we were trying to protect some of those precious alpine ecosystems.
Mr Sanson said this was his worst day as a chief executive and described Scott Theobald's death and his decades of experience as a devastating loss for conservation.
He was born to kill pests. He was born to bring back our birds. And there was thousands of birds, be they kokako, be they hihi, te on our islands because of Scott's pioneering with predator dogs and in conservation dogs.
The Transport Accident Investigation Commission says it's too early to discuss the possible cause of the crash. Staff hope to remove the wreckage from the site by tomorrow in order to continue their investigation into the crash back in Wellington. Southern District Command Superintendent Paul Basham says rumours retaliation for the tar cull might be the cause was unlikely.
At this stage there is nothing to suggest foul play. That will, and it rightfully would be, a normal consideration in any investigation. But I would say and stress at this point it is only a consideration. There is nothing to suggest at this stage that machine has been the subject of foul play.
Toby Wallis says the brothers will continue to fly.
It's in our blood, it's in our family. We've been in aviation for since 1960, early 60s. We're not going to stop flying. If someone has an accident on the road, you don't park all the cars up. So we'll keep going, but it will be tough.
The Wallaces thank the communities of Wanaka and Twizel for their support.
It could have been any of us in that helicopter, and that's not lost.
In Wanaka for Checkpoint, Tess Brunton, Tēnei.
Amazing report there from Tess Brunton. Amazing just to see the reaction of people as well. Emotional almost. Lou Sanson this morning, if you heard him on Morning Report talking to Guy and Espiner, visibly in shock. And there again this afternoon, very reflective on the contribution that those 2 dock members made to New Zealand, and of course the Wallis family as well. Double tragedy and an amazing way of approaching what must be a very shocking and difficult situation for them.